Welcome everyone. So this is the third session of the day. Thank you for coming to listen to us. So before we had a few sessions. One session was looking at the railways, so still ground. Then we had automotive. We still stay on the ground. And now we're lifting and we're going to take up and look at autonomous vehicle or, on the sky. So that's why this session is called Boosting BVLOS, is behind visual line of sight, which means I'm able to, let's say, have a drones or a vehicle that I pilot without being actually on the same location where the vehicle is. So, and we have a lot of experts for this session. So I hope you're going to listen carefully, but then after the session, if you have questions, I'm sure they will be here to help you to answer all those doubts that you have. And they will bring an experience from both sides. We will have experience from the connectivity side, from the mobile operator, but from the vendors, but also experience from the actual drone. So we are going to have both. But before I start, and we go on the full session, so it's going to be the speakers, they all will have a presentation, and then we will go to the panel. So the panel will be moderated by Cristina Pazzoia, so she will ask interesting questions to the panelists, I hope. But then we're going to kickstart with the first speaker. So our first speaker and presenter is Dave Pankhurst, which is the Director for Drones of BT, so British Telecom. Dave, please come to stage and give it a welcome. So I give you this, and the floor is yours to kickstart the session of the day.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So, Dave Pankhurst, BT Group. I've been leading BT's endeavours in the drone industry over the last 4 years, helping us start to create a foundation and a future in this space. My plan today is to quickly take you through some of the drone industry, a bit about the stakeholders, some of the tech in the space, and importantly in the M&O environment where there's value within this industry as well. For those that don't know BT Group, so BT is one of the most known companies in the United Kingdom, amazing network, whether that's broadband, cellular network, large customer footprint within the country and internationally, and trusted with some of the most safety resilient services in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. And it creates a great foundation for growing out into new industries and creating innovation. And part of that innovation is one of the units that I sit in. So there's a community in BT called Etc., which is an area for us to look at some of those new growth angles for the organization and how we can give it the room to get the investment, to have the people, to really have the time to grow out in these new spaces. It's an area where we can create, amplify and invest, and I sit amongst my peers, whether that's in health and fintech and looking at new concepts such as electric vehicle charging, and as per, I run the drones team. Now, I often shortcut this bit of the presentation when I've done it a few times by just saying drones are awesome. It's one of the easiest ways and one of the things that needs to resonate with people. But whether it's safety, whether it's CO2 reductions, whether it's job creation or GDP benefit in the UK or further afield, these stats hold true in every single region. There's a constant progression of this technology. It becomes more available, more capable, and it's enabling new ways to make our lives better. And that's whether it's across a whole host of different categories, whether it is in safety and in inspection. We sometimes talk about the 3 Ds, dull, dirty, and dangerous. How can we use this technology to take people also out of those situations and mean that we can be doing more interesting things and safer things as well? But one of the things that predicates this outside of the industry that exists today is how can these drones also become remote? How can they become autonomous, automated, and what's the role that as a telco that we can do to support with this? One of the reasons I sit in an innovation incubation unit is a recognition that this isn't easy. There are a lot of barriers, and there's a lot of progress happening as well. A lot of the focus is government and regulatory. So whether that be around your civil aviation authorities, FAAs, EASAs, from a spectrum point of view in the UK with Ofcom, what are the stepping stones to enable this industry to scale? How are the different players in this ecosystem going to evolve, and what are their needs that we can help with and help facilitate? From a tech space, it's really complex. From a supplier point of view, being one of the customer organizations on this, it's really hard to get established in a new industry. From a customer point of view, how do you trust which horse to back? How do you know which ones are safe? Which ones are applying themselves in a pragmatic way? How do you know which ones are going to be operationally ready now and in the future? And we have the opportunity to work with great organizations in this space and help them and bring those great ones into our customers. And going back into how is this something that we as a telco can gain value from and help grow and support as this industry develops. A lot of the industry now is a pilot in a central location operating their drone. As this moves forward into more remote operations, as it moves forward into multi-operators in the same environment, the reliance on connectivity, the reliance on data, on security, on shared infrastructure, thinking both digital and physical platforms, grows and increases. And again, the role of an MNO increases again in that space. And for us as BT, we predominantly look at across these 4 categories. And in all of them, we have to think about how do we enable these services, not just as a cookie cutter of what we've done before as an MNO, but how do we think about what are the needs of the industry and how do we tailor our services to meet their needs, and importantly, the safety requirements that they have to operate under drone operators. We launched just end of last year a drone sim. It's the first UK commercial sim that came from our network. With that, it had its own dedicated quality of service. It is ruggedized. It does a whole host of things to mean that an operator, when they speak to the Civil Aviation Authority, they can say, oh, we're testing and we're proving in this way. We as a network also need to help operators with coverage data at altitude, population risk density data. How can they go back again to the regulator and say we're acting in a safe way to improve their chances of being able to fly remotely? We invested in an organization called Altitude Angel last year. So this is around uncrewed traffic management. So this is around deconfliction services in the airspace. Again, as we scale up and more drone operators are operating in the same areas at height, how can we as a telco support that industry thrive as well, which sometimes will require distributed infrastructure. We've got a lot of infrastructure. How can we help in that ecosystem? From a detection point of view, whether it's around the potential risks from drones that they can create, and I go back to connect and also think about cyber security, if we want this industry to thrive, we also need to think about the potential risks in this industry as well, and how can we get involved in that. And we've got a great relationship with a company called Drone Shield in that space. And lastly, we should be using drones more ourselves. We already do as an organization in terms of our cell infrastructure, understanding line of sight challenges, understanding the state of our estate. But we could do it better. And actually, if we create the right digital platforms, if we can automate and remotely carry out this activity, we have a chance to actually enhance our network, create those digital twins we often talk about, and provide a better service to our customers. But also, if I can use that capability well, I can monetize that externally as well within the industry. All of these pieces amplify each other. If we do one well, then the others will find their way through as a sort of self-fulfilling wish. But what I'd say in terms from an M&O point of view, we've got a chance right now to get involved in this industry, really help it thrive and be part of its future. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Hey, that's it?
No, thank you very much. You can...
Where do you want me?
Yeah, go back to sit there. So we were going to have a little bit of movements while we do this. So we'll listen to an M&O perspective, the capabilities, the services, what they're offering. Now we're going to switch a little bit gear. So we're going to have John McKenna, which is the co-founder and the CEO of sees.ai.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much. Right, so my name is John McKenna. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called sees.ai. I'm going to start actually by painting a little picture. So in a not too distant future, our critical national infrastructure will be run by robotics. So night and day, autonomous systems just will work tirelessly to look after our critical national infrastructure and keep our societies running. Talking about electricity networks, road networks, rail networks, of course, communications networks, water networks, ports, airports, nuclear facilities, oil and gas, et cetera, massive infrastructure, some of the most valuable assets on Earth. We're talking about $100 trillion worth of assets globally, accounting for between 2 and 10% of a country's GDP, depending on their maturity level. By any accounts, this is a massive market. The market for robotics to fulfill this capability is enormous. And in order to make it happen, we need to pull together a suite of technologies. Dave's slide earlier on showed us that very nicely. So we, of course, need robotic hardware. We need sensors on board. We need compute on board. We need connectivity. We need the cloud. We need operators. We need standard setters. We need regulators. But actually, one piece of technology is the beating heart that pulls all of this together, and that is autonomy and centralized command and control. This particular suite of technologies touches all of the various different parts of technologies and makes a discrete piece of technology a contiguous whole that can deliver this capability. And this particular type of technology is the focus for our particular business, sees.ai. I'm going to rather cheekily put up the term BVLOS 2.0. We're developing a BVLOS capability that really is the next level, and in particular enables BVLOS to be scaled so that it can serve critical national infrastructure. And I'll just leave that for the moment and come back to it in a minute. First of all, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the team, because I think that helps you understand the kind of journey we've been on to date. So Sees is a startup. We were founded in 2018. We've got 4 founders, ex-Apple, CERN, McLaren, and hedge funds. This is a team that's won a Formula One World Championships, won 2 America's Cup, led the team that developed and deployed the first hybrid engine ever used in a supercar, developed software trading billions in capital markets. So this is a team that understands cutting edge of technology, but critically how to take this technology and deploy it safely in the real world. For those of you that don't know what an America's Cup boat looks like, this is an America's Cup boat. Our CTO, Eduardo, was head of electronics and controls, twice won the America's Cup with this particular team, Oracle Team USA. Our VP of engineering was a race engineer for Lewis Hamilton, guiding him to his first World Championships in 2008. And after that, joined McLaren supercar team, where he led the team that designed, developed, deployed, and put into production the first hybrid engine ever used in a supercar. We're backed by patient capital, by Boeing. Obviously, everyone knows Boeing. Tuazun is a sovereign wealth fund of the United Arab Emirates, and Techstars, one of the world's largest accelerators. These investors deeply understand the long arc of the technologies we're talking about and the enormous potential that they have. And then lastly, just in terms of a quick overview, we've been working with regulators really from the very beginning. Obviously, the regulator is the gatekeeper in the air. We have now the most advanced beyond visual line of sight permission in the UK, and one of the most advanced beyond visual line of sight permissions in the world. Right, so how did we get here? If I rewind a little bit and talk about this BVLOS 2.0 term, maybe the simplest way to talk about it actually is to talk about what I mean by BVLOS 1.0. So BVLOS 1.0 is essentially the capability to sit in a field or sit in a control room and control a single drone at distance. And so you might fly tens of kilometers down a rail network or electricity grid. The challenge is, if you think about the scale of critical national infrastructure and the service quality requirements of something like that, you can't scale an approach that is as human as BVLOS 1.0. In many ways, it's akin to what we were doing with Formula One in the 1990s. If you think back to the great drivers, Mansell, Piquet, Prost, Senna, you put them in the car, you push them out on the racetrack, you kind of went back inside, crossed your fingers, and watched the TV pretty much like anyone else. And you hope they came back alive, and you dream that maybe they'd come back a winner. But like that old Formula One is radically different to Formula One that we see today. And it's not just the car, right? So the car is radically different. The car now is fly-by-wire. It has a huge amount of compute on board, has a lot of autonomous activity going on board in the machine. The driver is still very important. But the car and the driver are really just one piece of the puzzle. So now Formula One is a system of systems. You have the car and the driver. You have the pit wall supporting the car and the driver in real time. You have McLaren HQ, which is hundreds of engineers using supercomputers supporting the pit wall and the car in real time and after the fact. And you have the FIA connected to a stream of data from every single car, acting as the independent oversight of safety, quality, and efficiency. Now I'm going to sort of paint that same system of systems picture when applied to the drone industry and what we're up to. So our drones use sensors. They map the 3D world that they're flying through in 3D in real time. And they use that understanding of the structure of the world to safely and efficiently execute close quarter complex operations, like this particular operation, which is us doing a close quarter inspection of 400,000 volt transmission line infrastructure on the south coast of England. So that's what one autonomous drone is capable of doing. But actually what we're talking about is really fleets of autonomous systems, fleets of connected and autonomous systems operating simultaneously, hundreds, even thousands of systems looking after critical national infrastructure. The next piece of the system of systems is supervisors. So we enable a team of supervisors to be able to drop into any mission in real time, to add a human level of oversight and initiative to be able to oversee system performance and safety, using very advanced tools that you'll see like in Formula One, so advanced telemetry, diagnostics, and remote control technologies to support the autonomous machine as it goes about its business. Third piece of the puzzle, we have a team of engineers that can pull historic data from every millisecond of every system's flight and can interrogate that data over a long period of time, again using advanced analytics and simulations tools to be able to ensure that the system is continuously improving from every millisecond of data gathered. Our system gathers about 1 gigabyte of data every minute. And so that approach is much more sort of long-term strategic, and that technology, as I said, uses advanced analytics and simulation to be able to continuously improve system performance. And then, of course, like the FIA, in the air we have regulators, and the regulators are extremely important too. And regulators don't want presentations and don't want promises. They want data, they want proof. So we bind them into this same system of systems. So it's a single layer of software that spans from onboard the drone enabling autonomy, to offboard the drone enabling supervisors, to offboard enabling long-term improvement of system, and to the regulator ensuring that they have a stream of data that not just provides proof of safety that they can use to build permissions, but actually gives them trust because they're deeply involved inside the loop. That's BVLOS 2.0. That capability ultimately is more safe, more capable, and more efficient, but critically, that capability can be scaled, can start to serve infrastructure on the scale of critical national infrastructure, and can do so in a way that is safe, secure, and trusted. Just to finish, 3 use cases that we're very deeply focused on at the moment: methane leak detection and quantification. So of course, satellites and fixed-wing aircraft can detect methane leaks. But if you actually want to be a responsible business and fix those methane leaks, you need to understand where the leak is coming from. And to do that, you need to get low and close. And so the drone is the perfect tool for the job. We're working with a UK-based company, $1 billion turnover UK aerospace and defense company called Marshall, building an autonomous system that sits offshore, deployed permanently, and is used to inspect offshore renewable energy infrastructure, towers, turbines, blades, and substations. And finally, just to wrap up, so the electricity grid, the backbone of modern society, but of course the key driver to the energy transition. We're about to triple the amount of power that goes through the electricity grid. We're about to double the size of the electricity grid. And all of that time, while we stop burning hydrocarbons, will make the grid even more critical to our lives. And so we need to find a way to be able to inspect and maintain that grid at a scale that we've never seen before. The helicopter isn't sufficient, has been a good tool so far. But now, as we lean into a machine learning algorithm future, we need structured, high-quality data that helps us understand the condition of the asset. And of course, again, the drone is the perfect tool for the job. So, quick overview. Done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for the overview and for bringing your visions and for talking about scalability. So I understand scalability is one very important topic. So now we're going to have our next speaker. So a pleasure to introduce to Pedro de Alarcón, you probably say better than me, you are going to talk about another aspect. So I leave it to you, the floor. Or
Thank you, Barbara. Hello, everyone. So today I want to provide a teaser, a glimpse of how telcos are building networks in order to support these massive use cases that are to come in the next years. So my role at Telefónica is to build APIs. So we are building software on top of our networks, not only Telefónica, but a number of telcos, I will explain in a minute, in order to support all developers in the world with different use cases, security, drones, healthcare, any use case you can imagine powered by the networks. The challenge here for drones is how do we design transversal APIs that support vertical use cases? How do we do that? Well, this is the promise of the next radio technologies. So we are now in the deployment of 5G standalone, bringing some awesome requirements in terms of latency, in terms of throughput, in terms of ability to use the network as a software resource, as a library, where you can reserve memory, you can reserve bandwidth, you can manipulate network resources as software assets. This is what is coming, and certainly with the advent of 3G and 6G, it will go bigger and bigger, and it's impacting in a number of stakeholders, drone operators, platform developers, regulators, everyone. The thing is that this picture is nice, but what is behind that is very heterogeneous. It's very, not only because of the ecosystem, all the hardware platforms, all the telco operators in different countries with different technologies, how we can put all together under the same network, how we can achieve the same degree of interoperability as we have for phone calls, for example. So we need to think about how the networks will be in the future or right now in order to support some extreme use cases like Web3, massive AI-infused models, Gen AI. You will see around a lot of Gen AI systems working on the cloud. Of course, drone networks, autonomous car, and so many others. So probably when we speak about hardware technology, we focus on the low latency technologies, including 5G standalone, fiber to the home, etc. But it's important to focus on the cloud infrastructure that is being deployed by big partners like Microsoft, AWS, or Google. And also, this is, I think, our focus today is to create a programmable network that we can deliver across the world. And this is the reason of Open Gateway. You heard this morning that Open Gateway is here to make and to provide a standard API set portfolio to several vendors and use cases. For the case of the drone industry, we see the telcos ourselves that we can provide not only mobile, aerial, and terrestrial communications connectivity that is taken for granted, but we can also provide the data from our networks. For example, we can provide a very accurate number of how many people are around the Mobile World Congress venue. And that is critical information to operate flights for safety and also for maximizing the efficiency of the resources. And last but not least, we can operate service. We know how to operate complex platforms and complex services, TV platform, communications platform. So we definitely, I think we have a role in operating some of the services that, for example, in Europe, are being deployed along with the US space. So, as I said, this is the reason why Open Gateway, born 1 year ago. Now I need to update this counter. Now we have 47 telcos join. Almost barely 70% of the mobile traffic worldwide is going to channel through these telcos and through these APIs. So the first thing we did as you see here, those are quite transversal categories. We created a category for network of drones because drones are very special. As already were explained, there sees.ai are developing operating system for this industry, for the robotics. So we had to start to prioritize what APIs are the foundations to build more sophisticated software elements on top of that. I'm referring to command and control consoles, operating systems. So we, as telcos, we have immediate action in order to deliver dynamic density maps for SORA, dynamic airspace connectivity, which is crucial for BVLOS flights when they have to roam across different networks, even combining mobile communications with satellite communications. Of course, we are able to provide, thanks to slicing, and to guarantee network requirements for critical missions. That is a must that for many use cases are being demanded by the industry. And last but not least, we put location services, but not GPS location, not GPS, not location provided from the trackers, but location provided from the network. This is something nobody can spoof. It's critical to guarantee where the drone is flying, and compare and match this information with the information coming from the drone. So this is an ongoing portfolio within Camara. Camara is the project, the Linux Foundation project, where we debate and standardize these APIs. You are very welcome to join. It's an open forum, so not only telcos, but any actor in the industry can join and propose and refine the API definition. These are the APIs we have in our roadmap for this year. But the important thing is that we created that software stack that is pretty much shared by all the telcos. So we have our network, our hardware capabilities and platforms. And on top of that, we built a kernel, which is our API platform. And those are Camara compliant, so they are standards. And on top of that, in order to scale up in the market and to deliver these APIs to the market, we sign agreements with hyperscalers and aggregators. For example, for the drone industry, we signed an agreement with Demeter, which is showcasing around these days. But we have also agreements with Microsoft Azure, AWS, Bonash, and many others. So this is the way we offer our APIs to the market. So any developer can connect to Azure or to Demeter and consume the APIs, no matter what telco is behind that API. And lastly, developers. I think developers are a key element in the value chain. And those are the ones entitled to build the new US-based services that are being delivered. I just finished, well, we can comment later on, I'm running out of time, but these are the first 3 APIs that we're delivering with some partners in Spain. And these APIs are already integrated in the software platform that manages the permission for the flight. So this software is asking Telefónica, what is the density map for a given mission that is to fly in a time in the future? So we provide a forecast of how many people will be around, respecting the privacy of the people, of course, and so they can integrate this in the SORA report. So that is so this is our density map, and this is a query using an API in real time. I finish here, and thank you very much, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Right, so now we have the last presentation, and then we are all going to have the speakers going to the panel. Please welcome Thomas Eder from NOKIA. He's the head of embedded wireless in NOKIA. And I know that we are using a lot of acronym, so we try our best to make sense of all this jargon. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Thomas.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Before I talk more about the NOKIA solution, about what we do at NOKIA, let me say congratulations. Congratulations to Barbara and the GSMA for pulling together such a brilliant panel. So all together, please. And I say congratulations because there is particularly one thing that I love as part of this panel, and that is broadening commercialization. Broadening commercialization is a problem that we have at the moment in both industries. On the one hand, in the telco industry with the topic 5G monetization, but on the other hand, also in the drone industries. Because let's be a little bit realistic. 95% of the bigger drone projects nowadays in Europe, but also in North America, are primarily focused on POCs, demos, trials, things where a lot of engineers spend a lot of time for trying something or validating something. And that's why I think especially the part of broadening commercialization is a key within this panel, within this session. With the example you see on this slide, it is visible that it is possible that we can actually scale drones as a service operations. This is a proof that BVLOS can work and drones as a service can work on a nationwide operational level. What you see here, what we do with our partner CityMesh in Belgium, is a nationwide deployment of 70 drone-in-a-box systems, NOKIA technology. Feel free to visit our booth and see the NOKIA drone network system. We deliver together with CityMesh especially something that is not only brand new technology, it is also helping people. It is helping the safety of the population in Belgium with our prime customers, our joint prime customers, firefighters and police in Belgium. The deployment model itself for the telco sector, we deploy there in both public and also private environments, but we also support with the NOKIA drone networks system the hybrid deployments. So that means a drone-in-a-box system or a drone that is flying in your network can operate both in a private and in a public wireless network. And that is a key where we need the MNOs and the CSPs out there to help us to broaden the commercialization and to literally boost the BVLOS. One success factor, and once again, I invite everybody to visit the NOKIA booth in the public space to see more about the NOKIA drone network solution. But one key success factor when setting up this project in Belgium, which is about halfway through the deployment, is the analogy with the drones as a service, or in general, the as a service model. And we look out there on the market, what prime players do we see within this as a service game? We take Uber as an analogy for a second. What is the key success factor of Uber in running their transportation as a service? It is, first of all, the easy access to it. I just download an app to my phone. It is very scalable. It is accessible for multiple platforms. It's like super easy to book a ride. In the same way, we have managed to simplify booking a drone flight for a firefighter in Belgium. Secondly, service levels, pay per ride, predictability, quality of service. That is yet another key for successful drones as a service operations at scale. How fast does the operation need to happen? Does it need to happen today, right away, immediately? What quality in terms of video stream does it need? Or is it sufficient if the power line inspection only happens tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or next week? And then last but not least, I don't need to talk about the service differentiation, because the more use cases we can support with a drones as a service platform, the more successful we are and the more revenue streams we generate. The second last point, and that is here actually the key where I really call out to the drone manufacturers, the drone industry, but also to the MNOs or CSPs, the easy onboarding and the partnering. Only if we manage to work together within this ecosystem and to establish successful drones as a service platforms, we will manage to run drones as a service operations at scale. It needs to be easy to book a flight. We need enough pilots. We need reliable, safe, 4G, 5G capable drone platforms. And that means the ecosystem needs to come together. With that, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to see you at our booth.
Thank you, Thomas, for that. So yes, indeed, we want to make sure that now the panel is also talking about the business aspects. So let me introduce to you our moderator. So it's Cristina Pazzoia, which works for GSMA Intelligence. And she's been leading also some of the analysis on the drone, so she's the best person to talk about that. So Cristina, I'll leave it to you if you want to invite your speakers.
Sure, yes. Hello, everybody. Let me say like a very quick comment. So BVLOS, it was mentioned earlier, but BVLOS is really about the ability to get drones to fly beyond visual line of sight, so at longer distances, like from the drone pilots. And we can safely say that it's considered like the first step towards achieving scaled drone operations. So this is going to be the topic of today's panel. So how do we get there? What are the technology enablers? Is the ecosystem ready? And what specifically, like the connectivity and the telco world can support with that? So I'd like to invite the speakers on stage. So if you'd like to join me. And please make sure you sit just below your picture so that it's easier to control the conversation.
Right.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for all of these insightful presentations. So I'd like to start with asking you to share some of the highlights of your involvement in drones so far. So Dave, would you like to, for example, say a few things like background things of how you got BT to invest in drones and to lead like a focused unit on this?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, it's not without challenge, I'll put it that way, in terms of helping your organization look at a new category and attempt to grow. And we did that through a number of ways, really. And actually, Thomas kind of half alluded to it in one of his pieces around trials and proof of concepts and that kind of stuff. A lot of the UK market over the last 3 years has been predominantly test and trial and government-funded activities and other pieces. So there's a kind of piece of what can we start to build out sooner? That means that we can potentially start generating revenue quickly, whilst also building out some of those strategic programs and work with the government on a number of topics in parallel to then grow that over time. So yeah, we've been involved in a couple large government programs. Like I said, launched an initial, like UK's first drone sim proposition, and now it's really bringing all that stuff together over the next couple of years to deliver at scale.
Mm-hmm. Thomas, it sounded like Belgium was quite a highlight for you. Would you mind sharing a bit of like how you got there, probably the challenges that you faced, and if you agree that this is replicable for other countries as well?
Absolutely. I think apart from what I said during the presentation, one of the key success factors, and I love the analogy with the Formula One car towards the drones, the key success factor is that you don't only have a great partner and a great ecosystem, but you also need to have the technology under control. And the technology here means the hardware itself, the drone, the docking station. You need the software, you need operators, you need the connectivity. So the regulators, like only if all those bits and pieces move nicely together, like an oiled engine, like in a Formula One car. Not sure if they are using oil still nowadays. Only if all those components work together nicely, then you are really able to deploy such a system at scale. It's not only the technology, by the way, it is also the connected services. So SLAs, maintenance, like all these bits and pieces need to come together. And then I think it's a good basis to run such operations.
Mm-hmm. And approximately how long did it take for both cases to get things off the ground?
Well, so for us as a business unit, it's taken about 3 years to get to where we are now. But individual elements of that were launched within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But it really is a strategic program of work not about these 3 years, but about the next 10, 15 years in this industry. So, but obviously you need proof points early on, and how you work with the regulators in that meantime.
Yeah. Well, if we look back in history, I think we started at Nokia somewhere between 2016 and 2017 with experimenting. What does it actually mean when you want to connect the drone over 4G? At that time, there was no 5G yet. And then, gradually we have been evolving and understanding what it means to connect the drone over 4G, 5G, what elements in the radio access network, but also in the core are required to really play a role there. So, it took a while. It's not happening overnight, definitely.
Yes, looking at the surveys we ran, so last year we started running like an annual survey, asking operators whether they see opportunities in drones, and this year we had more than double the share. Now is almost 70%. Around 70% of operators globally say they see opportunity in there. I guess, Pedro, you also agree. So just to close the loop on like the mobile side of things, so would you like to share a bit more about the history, how Telefónica got interested in drones, and maybe the highlights of this journey so far?
Yeah. So I think likewise we've been testing and working with technologies, network technologies, in order to support the drone use cases for many years. Let's say 7 years, 8 years since we started to see that this would be a killer app for the networks, similar to cloud gaming, streaming, and other applications that are challenging the existing capacity. That was a good exercise, and we see over the years how technology, both software and hardware, has matured, but still we see some challenges at the level of regulation, business models, and ecosystem. It seems we are building the house with the proper foundations, but at the level of making money, making a sustainable business, not only for telcos, but for everyone in the value chain, is not, we believe we are not really there. So now we are struggling with questions like how we can support the ecosystem in order to decrease the cost per mission, how we can make cheaper missions to everyone. So not only critical use cases are activated, use cases for critical missions are activated, but use cases like logistics, delivery of packages with your new shoes from Amazon, how we can deliver in the full stack of players at a reasonable cost, given that the technology, as we could see, is becoming very mature.
Let's hold these thoughts about the applications for a bit. Going to you, John. I mean, you touched on like the need for automation. Obviously, this is a long journey for product development. How is like the connectivity concept and aspects of connectivity coming your way? So do you need to work with telecoms operators and it's just solved? Is it something that you need to have internally as a capability? So how are you thinking about it at sees.ai?
So we've spent a lot of time. So Eduardo, our CTO, is ex-Apple Cupertino. He prototyped Face ID for the iPhone. So we have some degree of telco, let's say, technology understanding. That's been important for us to try to figure out how do we, go through the proof of concept and piloting phase. But what's really clear is, we don't aim to have core IP, which is related to telecoms. That ultimately, when it gets to deploying at scale, we need to be able to rely on not just local entities that enable us to solve a connectivity problem in market, but to be able to work with a partner that just opens up connectivity globally. And that's across all of the different technologies in connectivity, not just for command and control, but some great content already about all of the various different technologies that sit under an MNO's remit and are valuable for drones. But I think being able to work with one partner that just solves that problem for us is important. I guess one of the challenges is that it encompasses more than just mobile networks. We work with Starlink, we do point-to-point radio, we do mesh radio, so we're combining multiple different technologies so that we can evidence to ourselves that we will lose connectivity, but we'll lose it less frequently. And so I think it's a challenging thing, but we, as an entity that has now locked into several very large-scale use cases, are trying to step back from certain parts of the technology stack and find partners that step in and say, actually, we solve that, but we don't just solve it in one market, we solve it for when you scale globally. Maybe, one of the interesting things about the journey is there's a lot of technology development. It's very mapped to conversations you have with regulators, and so you're trying to understand the problems they see and mitigate them with technology and other operational mitigations. But actually and it's very easy to get kind of lost in that, it's quite exciting. The most interesting part of it is, already been, both panelists really talked about it, was, when the rubber meets the road, where do we start making money? And so, in the early days of drones, a drone could do everything. Like almost, people would phone you up and, oh, can you make the drone do this? And it's quite exciting because everyone sees the drone as a solution. But in most cases, it's an absolutely terrible tool to solve the problem. Gravity is a very harsh taskmaster at the end of the day. So it's really important, particularly when margins can be tied, to figure out the right roadmap. And by that I mean the use cases which are possible to deliver soon, which are uniform, global, massive, and high margin. If you can hook into those, then you can scale quickly, but you're getting really deep into the end client's business to try to understand exactly the problem you solve. And so I think that's now beginning to happen, and those use cases will scale massively very quickly, but they'll scale because they're uniform globally very quickly, like the grid.
And more specifically,
we will be flying,
would be like inspections, grid inspections.
Let's say, it's a no-brainer, right? Versus a helicopter, cheaper, faster, cleaner, safer, like everything than a helicopter. Better data, so it's so much better. So when that scales, it will scale globally. And so back to the original question, that's a tough ask for a single partner to say, we solve your connectivity and all of the ancillary technology problems as you scale globally. We just solve that for you. But that's what we need.
How much of a concern is monetization for the rest of you? And how are you thinking about it? Is it about identifying a market, an application-specific market that has the biggest potential? Is it about going maybe to some verticals that are more ready to adopt drones, or is it just thinking, okay, now we know that the BVLOS is allowed in X, Y, Z countries, we just need to go there? How are you thinking about your business incentives?
I think from ourselves it's difficult because fundamentally, if you're trying to create a foundation for the industry to thrive, naturally a lot of the value that gets generated from that is scale and volume, and often that necessitates a lower price point. But you need to invest to create that future, and then there is the ability then to go down those sector-specific ways. I think Pedro touched on a really important point of that we can't create a cost which negates the end-to-end value that the drone operators are looking to provide. We can't charge £1,000 a flight as an example when the operator can only charge £200 for conducting that mission. So there is a balancing act to find, because if you put in the layers of the stack of the connectivity and any of the UTM services and any other over that, you get to a point where an operator's got no choice but to find another methodology to do it. So the monetization balance is very tight. But yeah, there are specific verticals and things on some of the solutions I spoke through earlier. But I think there's got to be an appreciation of this is about the next 5 to 10 years of creating a scaled industry, not trying to go after one and then risk the whole pace.
Yeah.
To you, Thomas?
I think, so for your first question, the relevance of monetization itself, I see here again parallels between the telco industry and the drone industry. it's in both, like telco industry driving 5G monetization, the urgent need to prove the investments into the 5G infrastructure, the drone industry with the heavy need of scaling, rolling out volumes, operating beyond visual line of sight. So we have here two industries that are really experiencing urgency. And in terms of the relevance of monetization, I guess I speak for everybody in the industry. If we are not able to prove a sustainable business case, then what are we doing here, right?
What would be the year's horizon for this?
No more than 3 to 5 years. The second question you had was the second question you had was the use cases and the verticals. I think for every good business plan, you need the focus. So every solution we see out there today has its strengths and its weaknesses. There is no drone or telco network that works in the pattern of one fits it all. But as long as the organization maintains a focus with the right verticals, with the right use cases, and stays persistent with making that dream come true, that's the right approach.
Pedro, would you like also to consider like the 5G specific angle and the APIs as well in telling us more about how is Telefónica thinking about monetizing drones?
Yeah, so absolutely. 5G and 5G standalone are key elements in the future in 3, 4 years, 5 years. But in terms of monetization, we asked 3 questions, and we don't have yet an answer, to be very upfront. First, what are the use cases that are going to make this to explode? 1, 2, 3 use cases. We need to think about that, because the second question or the second decision we have to take is what is the proper business model for that use case in particular, because sometimes the use case is put into a business on top of the business case. And third, what is the pace of the regulators? What is the speed? Because perhaps the use case and the business model delivers in 3, 5 years, but the regulator is not delivering at the same pace. So we have to combine these 3 elements in order to plan investment. Because, as you know, network investment is no... So you can launch a similar platform to Uber with a relatively small few $1 million. You can run as Uber in your country. But in terms of deploying network capabilities, those are heavy investments that should be planned many years ahead. So if we are hoping in 5 years to have compelling use cases with proper monetization, then what is the investment we need to make, not only in 5G standalone, but also in pointing 5G upwards to the air, not only supporting the coverage on the earth, but also in the air. So that is the things we are designing, but what we make very sure is let's build the proper elements, foundation, no matter what technology is behind. So we are squeezing 4G now, using the same APIs. We are preparing this network quality on demand API for both working with 4G, 5G non-standalone, and 5G standalone. Let's build that, because software is faster to build, and then let's see how the market evolves. That is.
And I assume there are also like cases where like technologies beyond mobile will have a role to play, like a satellite, for example. Does anyone have any comment on that?
I think just quickly from myself, I think we can attempt to put our solutions on the customer, but like John and Thomas have got a regulator that's just as interested in what happens when you don't have comms. What are you going to do when you don't, and it won't always have it, and what's the kind of interoperability between different solutions, whether it is SATCOMs or other factors. So I think we have to up our game to meet the needs of the industry, but also recognize that a SIM card isn't the only answer to the problem. And over and above that, it can't be, because of the way the safety environment operates in this ecosystem. And that's where these guys will need to be thinking about different methods, but we obviously need to work with them, as to John's point earlier, in terms of that partnership, So we're looking at all sides of that equation. But
Yeah. I think we have to look at it from a connectivity has to become a commodity perspective. No matter if it's 4G, 5G, NTN, or whatever we have now, or whatever we will have in terms of 6G, the connectivity has to be there. It has to be a commodity, and we all have to work together in order to make that commodity available at all times.
For you, John,
Yeah.
is it?
I mean, there's no doubt that everything we're talking about will ultimately become a commodity. But I think what's interesting about this phase in the industry is it's not so different to the early phase of mobile when you had your BMW 3 Series and a big box on the side that was a mobile phone because you were a city trader and you had a phone and no one else did, and it was a value item, not a volume item. I think certainly there are many use cases in the drone ecosystem where, for example, when you replace an EC-135, which is a 12 million pound helicopter and it's carrying 3 million pounds worth of payload, that's a value exchange. You know, no need to fly a big helicopter, you can fly a small system. The margin that you can earn there is really significant. So I think in the early days, it's interesting you can search for high value and high volume use cases that ultimately, like Tesla did with the Roadster first of all, then the Model S, then the Model 3, you can start with high margin products that get us down the curve to volume and therefore eventually to commodity. But I think there is really opportunity for high margin services that span all of the technologies in the early stages, which ultimately then we all need to increase volume and reduce cost over time. But I think it's unrealistic to imagine we're all going to start being able to just service everything at the final commodity pricing.
I think we got to the end of these sessions, so I'd like to wrap up. Thank you very much for your contributions. You have been leading amazing work at your respective companies. I think in itself, this session was meant to be a bit of sharing concerns and how we tackle challenges, but in reality, we should be exciting because progress is being made, and thanks for making that happen as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.